Hey everybody, we're on location this time for How I Cook. I'm Stephen and Frederick. This week's episode, apples. We're going to be doing 3 recipes using apples from this orchard. Can't wait to get started picking. All right, see you in a little. So we're back from the orchard. It was a beautiful day and it was really fun picking these apples. Here are the apples we picked. There's 2 types that we picked. Honeycrisp. These are sweeter. And Stamens. These are a little more tart. They're not tart, but a little more tart. And these are really good for baking. So we're going to use these, a combination of these in 3 recipes. I need a little time to peel them and cut them up. So I'll see you in a minute or 2 after all that's done. So the first thing I'm going to be making is a baked brie with apple. So I've cut up some apple here. I have 1 more apple. It'll get us to around 2 cups of apple. I peeled the apple and then I'm just cutting around the core. There's plenty left on there. I'll eat this later, eat around the core. So we're just cutting it up into little chunks. And putting it into our measuring cup, and it'll be around 2 cups. This is a great fall winter appetizer. It's very easy. Wait until you see how quickly it comes together. People will be very impressed. And more importantly, it's really delicious. And there we have it, 2 cups of apple. We mixed the 2 types of apple. I have a frying pan here on low. To it, I'm adding 2 tablespoons of butter, 2 tablespoons of brown sugar, and 1 tablespoon of cinnamon. So the butter's now melted and the brown sugar and cinnamon have been incorporated. We're now going to be adding a half cup of pecans. These are pecan halves. Can you use pecan pieces? Absolutely. Just mixing these in, letting it get coated. We also have a half cup of dry cranberries, craisins. I'm gonna put those in. Let those get covered. And now the all-important ingredient, the 2 cups of apple. All right into the frying pan. The apple's going to release quite a bit of liquid. That's okay. We're going to cook this, I guess, a little over 5 minutes. We really have to play it by ear to see when the apples are softened and release quite a bit of the liquid and it's boiled off. In addition to cooking in the frying pan, it's a baked brie. So the apples are also going to be cooked in the oven. But we really do want to get quite a bit of the liquid out because we don't want it all pouring out in the oven. Here's a wheel of brie. This one's a little over 1 pound. Stand it on its side and cut it in half. And there we go. Beautiful. Love brie. I have a pie plate here. I'm going to put half of the brie in the pie plate, and we're going to continue to cook the apples, the craisins, and the nuts. So it's been around 5 minutes. The apples are softened. I'm turning the heat off. We have our 2 halves of brie, one in the pie plate. We are now going to take half the mixture and put it on the brie in the pie plate. Now, if you want to get a smaller wheel of brie, like an 8-ounce wheel of brie, do it. Then you just cut down all the other ingredients by half and do the same thing. But if you're having people over, this is going to be very popular, so I would go with the 1-pound wheel. So there we go, 2 pecans, or pecans, I say pecan, and then we put the other half of the brie, and put the rest of the mixture on. Trying to be somewhat tidy. So the oven's preheated to 350 degrees. We're going to put this in the oven for roughly 10 minutes. Okay, now we're jumping to dessert. I'm going to be making an apple cake. When I was a kid, I always asked my mother for Jewish apple cake for my birthday cake instead of like a cake with icing and all. I really love apple cake. But we're taking a huge shortcut. We're using cake mix. So you'll start with your favorite yellow cake mix, in this case, Betty Crocker. Put that in a bowl. And then you follow the instructions on the cake mix for what to put in it. So this calls for water, oil, and eggs. What I'm adding that's not called for is 3 tablespoons of cinnamon. We're going to mix this for 2 minutes on high. So the cake mix is mixed nicely, and we're adding 2 cups of chopped up apple. So we're following the ingredients on the cake mix, plus cinnamon, plus apples. Nobody needs to know. When you're serving them this cake, nobody will know that it is a box cake mix. I have a 9x13 baking pan. Spraying it with oil and pouring everything in. Now you're not going to follow the time on the box of the cake mix. We're going to check this at around 40 minutes. And then we'll check it every 5 minutes if it's not done in 40 minutes. The oven is preheated at 350. Looking good. Tap down. Any air bubbles. Let me see if the brie is done. If so, I'll switch them out in the same oven. If the brie isn't done, I have the lower oven warming. So the brie is finished, so we're just going to swap these out. So look at this brie. It's all melty, the nuts and craisins and apples and everything. Oh, just so wonderful. I have some crackers here. I really should wait a second, let it firm up a little, but I can't. Oh, and the smell. Let me get a craisin and a pecan. Okay, I didn't get a pecan, but. Mmm. So good. So easy. Put this in rotation when you're having people over. Put it in rotation when you're not having people over. I'll be back in a little. So the next recipe is an entree. We're going to make chicken with apples. I sprayed a baking dish with a vegetable spray. Put 3 chicken breasts in. The recipe calls for 4, but for our purposes, for our family this week, we only need 3, but you should use 4. I'm going to sprinkle a little salt. And pepper on the chicken breasts. And that's all we're going to do for now. These are going into a preheated 350-degree oven. While the chicken's in the oven, I'm going to start working on the apples. Here's another 2 cups of apples. I just cut them into slices, and I left the skin on. So, in a frying pan, 3 tablespoons of butter and 2 tablespoons of brown sugar. We'll let them mix together. Once they're melted down and melted together, I'm going to add the 2 cups of apples and half a large onion. So you can see I cut half of it, and this I also cut into slices. So the butter and the brown sugar are mixed together. We're now going to add the 2 cups of apple slices and the half of an onion sliced. We just want to coat the onions and the apples with the butter and brown sugar. Once it's coated, we're going to take it off the heat. These will be going into the oven with the chicken later, so we don't need them to be cooked right now. While I'm doing that, I'm going to make a liquid mixture that needs to go with the chicken as well. 3/4 of a cup of chicken stock, 2 tablespoons of apple cider vinegar. Of course, apple cider, apples. A squeeze, I guess around a tablespoon, of mustard. Use whatever mustard you have. In this case, it's stone ground mustard. And then a couple shakes of thyme. We'll whisk that together. Go back to the onions and apples. Oh, this smells so good. It's mainly the smell of onions right now, but sauteed onions. Oops. So it's been around 3 minutes. We're going to turn the heat off and take it off the heat. We have the liquid mixture, which I'm just going to put aside. These are just going to sit until the chicken hits 30 minutes. When it hits 30 minutes, I'll show you what we're going to do with these, and they're back in the oven. All right, that'll give me plenty of time to clean this up. So the apple cake is done. It just needs to cool down. It may look naked. It does not need anything on top. Let me repeat. It does not need anything on top. This is delicious. Remember, it's not the right way, not the way you should do it. This is how I cook. And I cook this apple cake with nothing on top. The chicken has been in for a half hour also. Let's get it out. We take the apple and onion mixture and we put it on top of the chicken. And now we take the liquid mixture, the stock and vinegar, mustard, and thyme, and we pour that over as well. Now that everything's assembled, back into the oven, the 350-degree oven, for another half hour. All right, see you in 30 minutes. So it's been another half hour. Let's check the chicken. Looks great, smells even better. So there we have it. Our 3 recipes made with apples. Chicken with apple, brie with apple, and apple cake. I hope you've enjoyed this episode of How I Cook. I'm Stephen and Frederick. Hope to see you next time.